ago, really about a year and a half to maybe 18 to 24 months ago, I had a company. So we bought an all-electric Ford Transit for our plumbing company. And
do you still have that?
Yeah.
Who drives it?
Our installers.
The installer crew?
Every day.
Okay. You plug it in at the shop?
Yep.
Okay.
So we bought this all-electric Ford Transit, and it was right about the time that we were starting a YouTube channel. Ironically, the day after we bought it was Austin's first day.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
And so we were starting this YouTube channel. We were looking to create videos that would gain some traction. We were one of the first people in the nation to receive an all-electric Ford Transit. And so we were like, hey, this will be a great kickoff to our YouTube channel. People have tons of questions about these. There's not very much information about them out there.
Yeah.
So let's make videos, right?
Yeah, I remember that.
So we made, I don't know, 10 or 15 YouTube videos about this all-electric Ford Transit.
Some of them were shit. A lot of them were really good.
And yeah, our videos were the most viewed American, they still are the most viewed American videos on the Ford Transit, the E-Transit. And so our YouTube channel started growing and all this kind of stuff. Well, then one day we get a call from an executive at Ford. They call our business phone. My wife answers it, and she's like, hey, I think you need to call this person back.
I don't want to jump your story, but didn't they end up interviewing you?
Yeah.
And put them in a deal?
Well,
okay, yeah.
No, they said, hey, we're in town right now. We're visiting the Clay Como plant.
Right, that's
We live very close to where the all-electric transits are made.
Yes.
And they said, we're visiting the Clay Como plant, and we've seen your YouTube videos. What are you guys doing for lunch? And so Austin and I
eating free steak and beer. That's what I'm doing for lunch.
we wrapped up the call we were on, and then we cleared our schedule and made it happen to where we could go meet with these 5 Ford executives.
Always say yes.
Yeah. And so we meet with them. They would not allow us to film the meeting, but in the meeting, they mentioned quite a few really positive things. They mentioned that our videos have sold more Ford E-Transits than any Ford salesman in the nation. And then they mentioned that they wanted to partner up with us, and we could become a brand ambassador for Ford.
Yep, I remember that.
So ultimately, nothing really ever came from that. And this is no fault of Ford or us or anything else. Basically, Ford's a big, giant corporate company, and they wanted to script our videos.
And you were like, no.
And our videos were successful because we aren't bought. Our opinions aren't paid for.
People want to see truth. They don't want to see polished commercials.
Yeah.
And they wanted to give you a polished commercial.
Well,
Is
they
that what I'm
wanted
taken from that.
Ultimately, like the agreement we came to, and it never really happened, was like, if you guys want to provide us opportunities for content, but we still get our control and say in what happens in the video, we're okay with that. But we aren't going to have you guys like write the video script for us and we're speaking your words, right?
Gotcha.
We wanted to remain authentic. And so nothing really came from that. But I still maintained those relationships with those executives. And next thing I know, a couple of months later, we get a contact from a company called Visor. And Visor was an emerging company. At the time they contacted me, they had no clients. They barely had a product out. They were that new. And they were looking to create, off of Ford's powerhouse, they were looking to create a home service business software.
Like a Field Pulse.
Like a Field Pulse.
Or a House Call Pro.
Or a House Call Pro.
Or Service Fusion or Titan or anything.
Yep.
Any of them.
And so they were looking to create this software. And keep in mind, all of this happened because Visor was being created through a company called Salesforce. Salesforce is owned by Ford Motor Company. Salesforce is the CRM that most dealerships use to track all their customers. It's their CRM. Okay.
Yeah.
So Ford, who creates Salesforce, decides, hey, we need a home service software. So let's create one called Visor. Well, because we already had this relationship with Ford and we had the E-Transit and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Ford talks to Salesforce, who talks to Visor and says, you guys need to call this Smedley guy, right? So now
that's Mr. Smedley, bitch.
Yeah. And so now we go into these in-deep talks with Visor. Visor flew their entire company out to the Kansas City area, and they followed us around for a couple of days. We filmed a couple of TV commercials. Our company was the face of Visor.
Yeah, which barely existed.
At the time. Right?
Yeah.
And then they they wanted to talk sponsorship. They wanted to sponsor our podcast. They wanted to sponsor our YouTube channel. They wanted to sponsor trade wins and all this stuff, right? And
like at this time, we have a contract with Field Pulse, sort of. We had an agreement kind of in the works with Field Pulse, right? So we're bouncing. We're like, what do we do?
Yeah. In other words, we have two companies that are wanting to sponsor the show. Both of them are software companies, and both of them want exclusivity in their agreement to where they are the only software company, right?
Yeah.
And so early on in the conversations with Visor, they were like, we didn't know you had a podcast. It's not on your website. And I said, yeah, I keep the podcast off our business website because sometimes we have to talk about divisive issues on the podcast, and I don't want to polarize our customer base. And so I keep them separate, right? I told them
which is 100% what you should have been doing.
Yeah, I was transparent with it. Yeah. And
you told them the truth. You're doing the right thing.
That was within the first 2 or 3 conversations.
Yeah.
Okay.
3 months goes by.
So 3 or 4 months goes by. We're still in talks with them. They finally send over a first rough draft of a contract. The contract had no money on it.
Nothing.
It was just let's talk about contract structure, and then we'll talk price, right?
Yeah.
However, I can say this with confidence. This contract would have been a 6-figure contract. With the amount of what they were wanting to sponsor our podcast, our YouTube channel, they were wanting my plumbing company to be the face of their company, and they were wanting to sponsor trade wins.
Yeah.
You're not going to sponsor 4 different endeavors for under $100,000 a year.
I would say, like my initial guess when we talked about it, I was thinking like 80.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this is probably gonna be 80. So we had some serious talks about it. Like, hey, what do we do?
Like this was serious conversations, right?
Like, what are we doing?
So then after they send over this rough draft of the contract, David and I are checking it out. And finally, they decided to listen to one episode of the podcast.
4 months
4 months later. And the episode happened to be one where we were talking about some bullshit, crazy political stuff that was going on out in California. And I can very vividly remember, as anytime we get political, I don't remain neutral, but I remain in a position where I can kind of see both sides.
Let me clarify. You are very good at dodging what you actually believe.
No,
I'm kidding.
I'm very good about staying open to see both sides and then formulate an opinion.
Let's be honest. I am too. But then when I formulate that opinion, you're going to fucking hear about it.
Yeah.
Like the one thing I hate more in life than anything else is people that are wishy-washy and then try to ride the fence and don't give a definite answer of where they stand.
Right.
I like to refer to that as quote unquote chicken shit behavior.
Yeah.
Because it is. Like, that being said, people that don't agree with me politically or whatever, like, I don't cancel them, quote unquote.
Right.
I don't try to, like, burn their house to the ground.
Right.
I say, okay, that's fine. And then I'm friends with tons of gay people. It don't bother me. I don't care.
Right.
Like, it doesn't mean that I devalue you as a person because I disagree with you.
Right.
The problem is with these people is if you didn't agree with them, they devalued you and were like, nope, sorry, I can't handle that. Well, we're not doing that. You know what I mean?
So they listened to one episode of the podcast and we were talking about some bullshit political stuff that was happening in California. And I'm paraphrasing here, but Dave, somewhere in that podcast, Dave said something about the libtards out in California. Or the fucking liberals or the extreme left, or I can't remember what it was.
It was probably
right?
libtards.
Yeah.
I stand behind that statement, whatever it was.
Right. So then literally the day after they send over their rough draft of the contract, I get a call from one of the executives. And he was like, hey, we're going to have to resend that contract. We've checked out the podcast.
4 months later.
4 months later.
By the way.
After we've sent over the contract.
Hey, yeah, good job doing your due diligence as a business owner.
Yeah, they said we've checked out the podcast and we cannot align ourselves with the opinions. And then here's the funny part. They specifically said, it's not you, it's your co-host. And so they were literally trying to drive a wedge between David and I. They were trying to create a scenario where it's like, if you fire your co-host, then we can talk.
Yeah, Mitch
they never said that,
but they were thinking it.
But they were trying to create that vision. They were trying to paint that picture. And so we were like, well, then I guess it's off, right? Because obviously I'm not going to waver on David as the co-host, and there's no amount of money that would change that. And so it's like, okay, that deal's off the table, right? And ultimately, like, nothing bad happened. Visor, they're not bad people. Visor's controlled by Salesforce, which is controlled by Ford. Ford has their brand they have to look out for.
Of course.
Of course. It's big business. It's big corporate business, and some deals work out and some deals don't, right?
Right.
And so you did a great, so that
I emailed them.
You sent an email.
I was looking for it. I can't find it. I don't remember if it was through my TradeWinds or if it was through Yahoo. I can't remember. You
sent an email back to them that says, obviously, like,
let me say what it was. Yeah. So I sent them an email that basically said, hey, I'm sorry to see that the deal fell through. I know that working with people that are not like-minded is difficult. And I said, we were willing to do that. We knew that you guys were more of a left-leaning corporation.
Yep.
And we were fine with setting aside those differences and working together.
Right.
And I said, as what you're trying to do now, getting into the trades with this type of software, you will be dealing with conservatives. That is what this industry is about. They're hardworking, right-leaning Americans. That's just what it takes to be that type of person, to be in that industry. And I said, we were looking to look past that. We didn't care. We don't care that that's your belief system. We were more than happy to work together.
Right.
And I said, if you're not willing to look past that, you're not going to make it, is basically what I said.
Right.
Like, there is no way you're going to make it because that is 80% of your target audience. Like, that is what I said in the email. I said, if you change your mind, we are more than happy to work together.
Yep.
Basically is what my email said.
Yep.
And what happened, Mitch? They folded like a fucking tin can.
On November 2nd.
Because they weren't, let's be honest, they probably weren't willing.
Well, on November 2nd.
Say that. I don't know.
If you Google Visor, VIIZR, the top two articles, Ford shutters company building an app for plumbers, electricians, and other trades.
Yeah.
Very next thing down, FordAuthority.com. Ford shuts down software company Visor amid app pivot. Right?
Yeah.
Now, you're always going to have posturing and story titles that seem to, anytime you're writing a story, the title can say one thing, but the story says something completely different.
Yeah, I hate that too. It drives me insane.
Right.
Stop.
So you're always going to have funny posturing there. However, we can't ignore the fact that Visor was not willing to get past the fact that their ideal customer does not align with their political values, and now Visor is no longer in existence. And so the lesson here for all trades-based business owners is, let's say you're a right-leaning conservative, and you get a service call at a house that has a Biden sign out front.
Or two gay guys live there.
Or they have a hate has no home here sign out front.
Don't be divisive. Get over it. Do your job.
They're still people. They're still your customers. They're still wanting to support your business.
Yeah.
You can't only align yourself with customers who think the way you do.